Greetings and hello to Marth and the Machines. I'm glad to announce that this issue of Rules Tolerating Frequent Misapplication was inspired by a comment on YouTube. The topic actually is not that difficult, just often forgotten. So it's a little grey zone, but I think it's good, because it's what actually got me into the game, more or less. So welcome to tonight's issue on power attacks. Wait, that came out wrong. I tried to put in the necessary something as we're dealing with the game's most fun element. Welcome to an RTFM issue on power attacks! With our all-time favorites: head weapon locks, headbutt, push, slam, trample, throw, double-handed throw. Enjoy! Okay, basics first. Why power attacks? Answer: because hands can be used to do more than hold and swing axes or hammers or, And big things with a lot of power can do bigger things. Warjacks are not like Space Marine dreadnoughts, them poor sods. King Kong was not limited to swatting helicopters. He climbed the Empire State Building while holding a lady, while swatting helicopters. Power attacks come in 3 unwritten categories, based on the number of open fists they need to be done. Those that require none, like headbutt, push, slam and trample. Those that require 1, being head weapon lock, throw, and the renowned double-handed throw, which speaks for itself. How to use a power attack? Simple. Just walk up to the target, spin the focus or force the beast, make it a hit roll, then do a competitive strength check. So any effects that directly modify the strength value are worth their weight in gold, like disruption field, rage, Power attacks cannot be performed after a charge, remember, even though slam and trample are in a way linked to charges, as you can't slam or trample if you can't charge. But besides that and some effects that modify something, wild aggression for example or full throttle come to mind, it's all down to walk up, spend focus or force, hit, do a strength check. I go first through all the options to which this applies and then cover slam and trample. Head weapon lock. What happens? Your mean machine grabs one of the target's weapon's arms or his head and keeps it from functioning properly while the lock is maintained. Application? Locks are certainly at the lower end of the scale. Why delay something if you just can't beat it to pulp? Well, maybe you can't. Maybe you don't want it to. Maybe you like to emphasize your relative power, whatever. Locks keep the locked system from working. You choose a weapon or head system, and any weapons located in that system cannot be used while the lock is maintained. If the enemy jack or beast breaks free, he has to use focus and fury to use that weapon against you afterwards. The most common application earlier was, and probably still is, to engage any Lancer or Revenger, lock the shield, and clobber the wimp with additional attacks without retaliation. In addition, while a lock is maintained, both models cannot advance or be pushed. Now remembering that turning is an advance, there's the trick of walking up to a target from behind and locking a weapon system. Even if the target breaks free, it won't be able to turn to you, since breaking free is done at the beginning of the combat action. So it can't attack your jack back or beast back, even if it breaks free. What could also work, if I'm reading this right, is that you could also save yourself from being pushed by locking one of your own warjacks or beasts, and then releasing him first turn, next turn. Kruger's feet or gallows coming up, lock one of your own and create a nigh unmovable iron wall. Headbutt. What happens? Your mean machine does what Zidane did to Materazzi during the European Football Championship in 2008, and the target hits the floor. I am not going to sully my French fingers on your dirty Italian sweat. Take this! Application. Headbutt has the advantages of not needing an open fist, just a functional cortex. You'll always roll 2d6 on to hit and damage, no matter if the rest of the jack is a charred wreckage. With the advent of Shake-Off, Knockdown no longer straight up removes a model from play for a turn, but it still functions great to set up kills. With the advantages mentioned, it works best with a jack that can't be used to take the target completely out on its own. Knock down a model to get line of sight for magic and shooting, be it your own heavy or the enemy. Knock down somebody engaging a lot of your guys, saving them from free strikes, or unengaging them to make ranged attacks. And, classically, knock a target down so it's auto hit in melee and defense 5 against ranged attacks, without risking that it ends up out of range. Push. What happens? Your mean machine shoves the target away, clean and simple. Application. The main advantages of push are that all warjacks can do it and it requires no open fists. Push is probably the most undervalued and most situationally useful power attack. It moves the enemy 1 inch, then allows you to follow up that inch. You don't have to, though. Overall, it's like Warmachine Sokoban. You can, for example, push your own models like casters to get that additional inch of threat range. You could push enemy models into your charge lanes. And you can use them to push them out of melee with you unless they have reach. Since push is not an advance, there will be no free strikes from either side, but it's still your turn. I think you could also push your way out of engagement, freeing up the enemy to be fired at. Throw. What happens? Your mean machine grabs the target and flings it in a rough direction. Application. Things start to get interesting here. Throwing models means that the thrown models move through, or rather over, models with smaller bases, rough terrain, etc. without being impinged in their flight, until they reach the point of impact or contact a model with an equal or larger base or an obstruction. Then and all models it contacts are knocked down. Knocking down a model other than the thrown model on purpose is difficult since single-handed throws aren't aimed. But it's still very useful to clear a charge lane the hard way, throw an enemy jack outside the caster's control area, throw an enemy model closer to your troops or into terrain for the extra damage die, or an enemy warjack into another enemy warjack, hindering them both with a knockdown. Remember that collateral damage is the throwing model's strength, which should be more than enough to kill single wound infantry or soft multi-wounders. Throws are good options for jacks without ranged weapons. Double helmet throw. What happens? Your mean machine grabs the target with both hands, lifts him up, aims and throws him in a certain direction. Application. The main difference, besides the requirement of a second open fist, is that you can aim at a specific model with this, thereby making the knockdown at range a more suitable choice. It feels good to knock the enemy caster down with their own jack, which is a classic. In addition, you can do everything you did with a one-handed throw, just more accurately. The repositioning has as many benefits for you as you can salvage. The major benefit of the double-handed throw is that you can make a melee attack roll to hit with the throw, which creates outrageous synergies with spells like Full Throttle, Unearthly Rage and such. A classic trick with all throws: toss that warjack into water. It goes knocked down and the water quenches the furnace, disabling it. Or throw it at deep water when available, and while the opponent takes him from the table, sing a line of either Time to Say Goodbye or My Heart Will Go On. If you can't sing, whistle the tune. Slams. What happens? Your mean machine builds up momentum and tosses itself at the target of choice, smashing it or at least ramming it away with the bulk of its weight. Application. Slams require you to go straight, that is directed towards, the enemy, so they aren't as simple to use. If you hit the enemy, you slam him back 1d6 inches and then he is knocked down. All smaller base models in the path are also knocked down automatically and suffer collateral damage. And if the slammed model crashes into an equal sized or larger model or into an obstruction, you roll an additional damage die on a roll that can be boosted. Therefore, slams are potentially the most damaging power attacks to the initial target. Especially the Marauder's combo slam under Fury and the Butcher's Feet, but that combo takes everything through the roof. Slams are the classic way to knock the enemy caster down. Remember that you can also slam your own models over the enemy to achieve that effect. Oh, and slamming warjacks into water, as explained, works wonders. Trample. What happens? Your mean machine decides to show the puny guys who's bad and goes on a rampage. Application. Trample is full of benefits. It potentially generates a gross number of melee attacks, which are all subject to relevant spells and abilities. Full Throttle, Snacking, you name it. It provides answers to a bunch of situations. Little ones warding the Warcaster. Trample! And, if it's in range, flatten the caster with additional attacks. Targeted by little ones. Trample! The enemy is under the effect of Polarity Field or can't be charged due to something else. Trample! It does not need a target. Ironically, under some upkeeps like a sail, slow warjacks could actually trample faster than they could run. So that concludes my overview and takes on power attacks. I hope it was helpful and inspiring, and I will hope that I will use them more myself. Till next time, farewell.